What is going on, you guys? Today is an exciting day because we finally got my new suspension in the mail. It is actually the day after I just finally got to put these new wheels on the car, so I'm so excited to get rid of this wheel gap. I didn't have to live with it for that long, so hopefully our new suspension can get rid of this wheel gap. The front is a lot worse than the rear, but as you guys will see in a second, we have got some new suspension. Okay, so here we go. I feel like this may be an unexpected part that I chose. But also, I feel like it's not easy to guess that this is probably what somebody would choose, because this is the first time I've done suspension. The last time I did suspension on anything was putting a lift kit on my old Jeep that I used to have. H&R lowering springs, baby. So I know what people might say. Why did you get some lowering springs? And honestly, this was just supposed to be a way that I could cheaply fix the wheel gap for now. So obviously, some point in the future, I probably want to get like some coilovers or something like that, just because I think that those would be a lot more performance oriented than like these springs will ever be. But I think that for now, these should get the job done perfectly fine. Especially because one of my main goals of getting these was just trying to get rid of my wheel gap. They're probably, the springs on my car right now are probably pretty rusted out, so I guess you could say that I'm just doing some maintenance. But the main goal was to get rid of that wheel gap. So if I remember correctly, the back is supposed to drop 1.4 inches, which hopefully it gets a little closer, I guess, but also I feel like the back isn't terrible. Hi, Carl. And then the fronts are supposed to drop 1.5 inches. So hopefully it makes the fronts look a lot better, because that gap is pretty huge. But regardless, we're gonna get the car jacked up into the air, and hopefully this is a pretty painless install. I have seen some horror stories, and up north here there is a lot of rust from them putting salt on the road, and this car is 22 years old. So hopefully as I'm going and doing these, there isn't that much rust and I don't break any bolts or anything like that. But one can only hope. Okay, I know it doesn't look like it, but the car is fully up in the air right now. I can't believe how far the suspension travels. Look how big this is whenever it's extended the whole way out. I mean, that's kind of crazy. I didn't know it needed that much to get up the whole way. So we're gonna go ahead, pop all 4 wheels off, and then I'll just show you guys whenever I do like the front and the back, because watching all 4 of them is just gonna take too long and be boring for you guys. All right, so I got the wheels off the front on both sides. So to take out these, all we gotta do is undo these 3 bolts that are up here, and then undo these 2 bolts down here, and the whole entire thing should just slide out, and we can go ahead and we'll have the whole entire strut and spring. So we can go ahead and replace that spring, and we'll see what it looks like after that. So, all right, so we finally got one out. We got our new H&R spring right next to it there. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop the other front out. Then we can go and install them. I'm very excited to see how this is gonna lay whenever we finally got the springs on the whole car. So maybe actually I'll just do the front first, since we got this whole front out, and I can do the other front right now. And we'll do that together first, and then I'll just do the rears off camera. See, like, learning is so crazy because it took me like 45 minutes to get this side out and everything done with it, to get that first one in the clip that you just saw like 5 seconds ago. The one on the other side literally took me like 5 minutes. Like, this one took so long, but that one I got out so fast. So it's crazy just to see, like, oh my God, like, I'm learning. That makes me hopeful for the rest of the car getting done quicker. But now comes the hard part where, well, I guess some people might not think this is the hard part, but for me it is, because I don't have a spring puller or whatever they're called, where you can like compress them. So I'm gonna get some ratchet straps or something, and we're gonna tie them around the ends and see if we can pull them off like that. Or I also saw some guy on YouTube who just kind of like popped it right open, and it didn't seem that bad. So I'll have the camera rolling for it, so you guys will get to see what I decide to go with. Okay, on second thought, I'm just gonna wait to take this apart until I have all of them, so I can just do them all at once. Change them all at once, and then just start chucking them back into the car. So for this back seat here, whoa, we got 2 bolts we got to take out. There's one down there, and there's one down there that hold this bottom part of the seat in. And then behind that, I'm pretty sure there's 2 more bolts under here, and then the whole back seat comes out. So we just gotta do that quick, and then we'll have access to the top hats of the rear suspension, so we can pop those out and also do this bottom part. But yeah, we'll do that quick, have all 4 here, so that we can just do all of the springs at once. And that should be a lot easier. Hello subs. So as you can see now with the back seat out, we do have access to these top hats. While it is slightly limited, we can access them both on each side. So yeah, should be pretty easy to just take those right out. See, that wasn't even that bad, just a tiny little pop. All right guys, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't record very much, and as you can tell, it's a completely different day that I'm working on this. It's the next day. I just realized I got black on my nose, but this thing was making me so frustrated trying to put these new lowering springs on it that honestly, I couldn't record anything really. I was just getting so mad. I spent hours trying to get this thing together, and honestly, if I had to do it again, I might just buy coilovers. But that could just be my take because this is my first time ever doing something like this, so maybe for somebody else it would be easier, but personally, for me, honestly, I don't know if I would ever try and chuck new springs in. As you can see, I got tools all over the place, but I did actually go out and get some spring compressors because it was just making life so much easier than trying to do a ratchet strap. I had tried to ratchet strap or just like force the new springs on and it wasn't working. I just ended up getting one. It was like $30 at Harbor Freight, and if I'm only going to use it this one time, that's an okay price for me. With all that being said, I finally have the new springs on the car. I still do have to chuck the back seat in because that's still out from whenever I had to put the rears back in, but we are ready. To drop the front down because the front I have on 2 jacks and the back are on jack stands. So we're gonna go ahead, we have to drop the front first, and I'm gonna set up the camera and we're gonna see what it looks like whenever I drop the front. Now these do have to settle a little bit, so it's not gonna be exactly what they're gonna look like, but it should be a lot better than stock was. Oh, see, if you saw that first clip where I was lowering the front, there was still a huge gap. And I was like, oh no, did this already have like lowering springs or something on it? Like, why is it so tall still? But now that we've dropped the back, the front has dropped and the rear has dropped. And also this is before it settles, keep in mind. So, you know, some people like to go with a closer fitment than this, but honestly, I feel like this is good for daily driving. It still has to drop a tiny bit. I don't know, you guys be the judges of that. Is that like 2.5 finger gap? Maybe like 2 3/4? Still has to settle though, so it'll go a little bit farther down. In the front here, I think this is clearly 3 finger gap. So I know some people might not think this is very great, but for me, I think that this is perfect. This is exactly how I wanted the car to sit, and once it drops down a little bit more, amazing. It's just gonna look perfect. So if you remember at the beginning of this video, this thing kind of looked like a Tonka truck with how tall it was sitting. And you know what? I cannot be happier with how this looks. I'll pull it out real quick and we can do a little walk around. Actually get to see it the whole way around without it being stuck in the garage. I mean, guys, let's be for real. I mean, of course it's not squatted to the floor, but I feel like it still looks so sick. And I have to keep telling myself it's gonna settle because, you know, I still see that little gap in the back there and this little gap in the front here, but I feel like after it settles, it should look better. I'm like 80% sure this isn't what the fitment should be at the end. And you know what? I'm gonna come clean about a couple of things for you guys during this install process, and that starts with, you know, here in PA, we're up north with some of the other north boys, and you know what? It gets rusty up here with all the salt that we putting on the roads whenever it's snowing and stuff. So I'm impressed I didn't break a single bolt during this whole process, except for one, but it wasn't rusted. And that would unfortunately be this top bolt behind the top hat. So I'm unfortunately gonna have to pop out that strut again so I can replace that. I already have a top hat coming in the mail, so I'm gonna change that out whenever it comes. Maybe I'm gonna look at like Napa and something too, just in case I can get something quicker from them. But that's sad, because now I gotta pop out the whole strut to replace that top hat. And there was one bolt that broke, and it wasn't rusted at all. It was literally perfectly fine. I just accidentally cross-threaded it, and I snapped it. And that made me even more frustrated whenever I was trying to get everything done with this car. You can even see my little piles of rust that I got. I got that one over there. Got some rust over there, got those over there. So that part was not very fun, but I'm impressed I did not break a single rusted bolt. Another thing, these are the rear bump stops that are on the car, and you can see they're just absolutely disintegrated. So I'm gonna have to order new ones of those, and I'm hoping that I don't have to pull the whole strut out. Like maybe I can like cut a slit in it and push it on there and have a bump stop for it. So I'm just kind of hoping I don't go over a big jump or like hit a big pothole or something and bottom out, because there's no more bump stop in the back. So it's literally just going to be metal on metal if it hits. So praying and hoping that I can find a way to put some bump stops on the rear and fix that. But anyways, there's no point in installing these new coils just to look at it. So I'm going to take you guys for a test drive, give you my opinions about it. All I've ever experienced on this car is stock suspension. So this will be a big change up for me.
You're good.
Alright guys, so I'm out testing out the new suspension now, and honestly, this might be a controversial take, but I honestly think that the suspension feels better. I think these shocks are a lot stiffer, so the car just feels kind of like smoother going across the road. Little bumps that I'm going over, you can kind of feel, but it doesn't shake the suspension a lot. The car just feels stiff, I guess, is a good explanation for how it feels over small bumps. If you go over a big bump though, it gets a tiny bit bouncy. So it really isn't that much, but I feel like I could understand somebody getting annoyed with it after a while. But really, I mean, compared to what the stock suspension was on this car, I don't think it's bad at all. And if anything, you know, I think lowering it gives it that lower center of gravity, gives you less body roll whenever you're going around like corners and stuff. And I actually like that the springs feel stiffer going over like tiny bumps. I think I like that feeling a lot more. And one thing that is a result of, you know, altering your suspension. So I'm going straight right now, and the wheel is kind of like cockeyed to the left. So definitely am in need of an alignment, but I have to get this car inspected in June. But this car has to get inspected within like the next 2 or 3 weeks, so I think it works out perfectly that I was doing, you know, wheels, tires, suspension all at this one time, and then I'm gonna get the car inspected. They can go ahead and give me an alignment so that way it straightens everything out, and then hopefully the springs will have set by then. So here we are actually 3 weeks later, and as you can see, this is what the drop looks like in the back. Ignore this part of my diffuser. This is how much the drop is in the back. Then if we go up front here, we have dropped a very good amount in the front. I feel like I'm pretty happy with that fitment. And I know the front does look higher than the rear, but I think I looked it up and it said that the rear arches are actually a little bit lower than the front. So this is actually flat to the ground. The arch in the front is just a little bit bigger. That's why it looks like this. But guys, I cannot be happier with how this turned out. I am so excited to drive this car around now with all the different modifications that we've done to it. New wheels and tires, new suspension. I think that it looks immaculate now. I was able to get the car inspected and I got an alignment for it. So wheel is straight, the wheels are straight, which was a problem that I was having before. So I am so excited and happy now that everything is done with this car in that regard. But yeah, waited a little bit longer to do the update on what it looks like with the lowering springs on it, but I think that's actually better because it allowed it time to settle and also for me to get an alignment done so that way it's fully ready. But with all that being said, I don't have anything else for this video for you guys, so thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you checking out the video. Click on some other videos if you're interested in the channel, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.